I'm convinced that NFL fans have dementia. That's right. Every last one of you is forgetting about one of the best NFL teams, forgetting about one of the top contenders in 2024. Every last one of you. You can't remember the Cincinnati Bengals? How could you forget the Cincinnati Bengals? How could you forget Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, what they did in 2021, what they did in 2022? How could you forget? You should get checked for dementia, because my content right now is fueling more content. I put the Cincinnati Bengals in the top 5 teams in the NFL. I discussed how the Cincinnati Bengals were left out of Colin Cowherd's top 10 teams in the NFL. And for some, that was justified. Are we serious? What are you smoking, sir? When Joe Burrow is playing and the Bengals are at 100%, they are one of the few, if the only team, that has been able to go toe-to-toe with the back-to-back Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's not forget it. The Cincinnati Bengals will be contenders in 2024. They will be great in 2024. And I'm going to say that they will make you remember them. I'm going to predict that they will be better than ever in 2024. Bengals fans, Gronk spike that like button, man. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm about to go off on these haters. I know they might be sick. They might have the dementia. They might have just forgotten. Because I do not understand the lack of respect for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. There's Lions fans out here saying what they've done and they've accomplished is more impressive than the Bengals. That they should be justifiably ahead of the Bengals. It's debatable that the Lions are a very good team that went to the NFC Championship. But to suggest that they should rightfully be ahead of the Bengals easily, no doubt about it, no second thought, is outrageous. Let me remind you what the Bengals accomplished in 2021 and 2022 before Joe Burrow got injured and missed a majority of last year. They were about to do it again, by the way. Now, in 2021, they walked into the playoffs. Nobody expected anything from them because they were young. The Bengals defeated the Raiders at home. Easy peasy. They moved to the divisional round as an underdog on the road to the number 1 seed, Derrick Henry-led Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel-led Tennessee Titans. For a short stint, one of the better AFC teams in football that went to Baltimore and beat the 2019 Ravens, right? This Bengals team beat the Titans. Then they went to Kansas City in the AFC Championship and beat the Kansas City Chiefs. If I have to put that into perspective, only Tom Brady has beaten the Chiefs other than the Bengals. So only the greatest player ever on 2 different teams, shout out TB12, has defeated Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs. The Bengals are the other team. And then they went to the Super Bowl, and against all odds, against an absolutely stacked Rams team, they nearly won that game. And there was a little bit of an iffy call on that final Rams drive that I will not discuss, but there was an iffy call. That was a loaded Rams team. and they went to the Super Bowl, and they nearly won. And I didn't think they were even going to be close in that game, to be fair. The year after, they go 12-4. They go to Buffalo in a rematch of that horrible scene on Monday Night Football. And they destroy the Bills, dismantle the Bills in their building, in the snow. That was a statement. The Bills are rarely blown out in this era of Josh Allen football, including by the Chiefs, right? Those games are always close. The Bengals dismantled them. And then they went to Kansas City, and it was 20-20 with about 2 minutes left in that game, and they lost. But you might not recall, because you have dementia, that they had a practice squad offensive line in that game because basically their entire O-line was ripped apart from the seams the entire season. So they were working with nothing on that side of the ball. And they lost to the eventual Super Bowl champs in back-to-back years. And then last season, this might be the most impressive feat. When Joe Burrow went down, I thought they were a goner. I thought they were done. But they still finished above 500 despite one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL and one of the best leaders in the NFL missing a ton of games. Like Jake Browning, a guy that we had never heard of previously, played 7 games, and the Bengals still went 9-8. They beat the Bills last year, right? They nearly beat the Chiefs with their backup quarterback. They beat Jacksonville with their backup quarterback. They did some great things near the end of the year. And just to remind you, T. Higgins hasn't been traded. Trey Hendrickson hasn't been traded. Jamar Chase is still on the team. Joe Burrow is going to at least be healthy this offseason, something he was never last year. And when you compare this roster to the one that played in 2022 or even 2021, late into January and February, the unbelievable thing about the Bengals is how familiar their roster is, how much chemistry this roster has. You look at the names that have stayed firm and around since 2022 and 2021. I mean, I could go through the depth chart. Like, Joe Burrow is still the quarterback. Jamar Chase is the wide receiver 1. T. Higgins is the wide receiver 2. They've got multiple offensive linemen from the 2022 campaign, including Alex Kappa and Ted Karras. They have since upgraded multiple positions on the offensive line. More on that in a second. But then you switch to the other side of the ball, and Zach Taylor's still the head coach, and the defensive coordinator, Big Lou, is still the defensive coordinator. And yes, the offensive coordinator is now in Tennessee. But Zach Taylor's an offensive guy. I'm not too worried about that. Defensively, Trey Hendrickson is still there. Sam Hubbard is still there. BJ Hill is still there. Pratt is still there. Wilson is still there. Von Bell is back. Mike Hilton is still there. Cam Taylor-Britt is still there. So you go through the roster and you're like, well, what are people missing? And then you could go to, okay, they lost Tyler Boyd. Well, they just drafted a kid out of Alabama that might have a little bit of character issues off the field, but pretty talented kid that some thought was more of a second or first round talent, ends up going in the 3rd to Cincinnati. And with the leadership of Joe Burrow and the captains on this team, I'm sure they can steer him in the right direction to make him be a really explosive slot receiver for them. I liked Charlie Jones a lot last year. I think that he's going to come in and be productive. And then they still have Trent Irwin, who's not a bad player. He's shown up in multiple big moments and made key plays. They actually upgraded tight end with Mike Gesicki, who is also kind of a slot receiver at the same time. This is the best offensive line that Joe Burrow has ever had. Orlando Brown on the left, Trent Brown on the right. two Twin Tower Browns running people over, mauling the competition, and protecting and keeping Joe Burrow clean. And if one of them go down, we got another 6'8" behemoth named Amarius Mims out of Georgia who could play the left or the right and step in and be successful. First round pick. They still got Karras. They still got Kappa. This is the best O-line that Burrow has ever had, and it has depth. They brought back all their tight ends from a year ago, and they just added Mike Gesicki on top. The running back position, I think people are sleeping on Chase Brown. I think Chase Brown's going to be legit. And on top of that, Zach Moss had his best season of his NFL career last year. They signed him up to help replace Joe Mixon. I think they have multiple backs that can get the job done. It will be interesting to watch how that works. But that's the only real thing that you might be worried about, and I'm not that worried about it. Especially with the offensive line improvements, I think the run game will be more successful and more consistent. I think Joe Burrow is going to be a better player this year than maybe he has ever been. Because from what I know and understand about Joe Burrow, he's a man of vengeance. He's a man that with a chip on his shoulder, he is dangerous. And he is out to prove a point because he was hurt last year. And I think people have forgotten what he can do. And he wants to prove what he can do once again. And I would be scared of Joe Burrow come playoff time. And I think if you ask the Chiefs and Chiefs Kingdom, the number one team they would not want to see enter Arrowhead, it would be Burrowhead, right? The defense, I think, has improved at safety from last year to this year. You add Von Bell back. You still have the multiple starters you had last year, including Dax Hill, who could be a hybrid corner or safety. And then Battle, who's in his year 2, who was pretty good in year 1. And then on top of that, they add the interceptor, the league leader, Geno Stone, from their rival Baltimore. Really good roaming free safety to replace that Jesse Bates role. Mike Hilton in the nickel spot. Cam Taylor-Britt was an elite player last year. He's back. DJ Turner, second round pick 2 years ago, I believe will be a pretty good player with his great speed and quickness. I'm intrigued. I wish they would add one more depth piece to the corner position, but I can't really be that angry about it. I like what they have. Defensive line-wise, they've probably got the best D-line they've had in a while. I understand that DJ Reader is gone, but Sheldon Rankins is a good all-around D tackle. He's not going to give them quite the run support that Reader does, but I think he's more of a pass rusher. And then they added multiple mid-round picks to the interior defensive line, including Chris Jenkins. And then they have Miles Murphy in year 2, a first-round pick that they would hope to see more from this year, behind Hubbard, behind Hendrickson. So I'm looking forward to see that rotation. So this Bengals team is pretty complete. We've seen how their defense performs in big games, how well they game plan for their opponents. We've seen how their offense rises to the occasion, ball controls, and is able to be explosive in big games. If T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow are healthy for the entire year, this is going to be an excellent offense and an excellent team. And I just feel like everyone has forgotten about this team, what they were and what they will be in 2024. It's honestly kind of embarrassing, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because it's odd that a team with this much publicity, this much hype, this much excitement, in basically 2 of the last 3 years, especially with Joe Burrow and the sunglasses and all that shit, people are sleeping on Cincinnati. And I believe, for all these reasons and more, Joe Burrow healthy with a chip on his shoulder, Jamar Chase being an alpha stud wide receiver, T. Higgins as a great number 2, the best O-line we've ever seen for Cincinnati, the best pass rush rotation we've ever seen for Cincinnati, a safety position that's deep, and experience and anger and frustration. I believe Cincinnati will be better than ever in 2024. Gronk, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Peace. Fuel my next video. Appreciate it.